Hello and welcome to News Centre. I'm Parikshit Luthra. The big corporate story this evening: the National Company Law Tribunal will hear the insolvency plea filed by GoFirst tomorrow. The cash-strapped airline blamed its engine supplier Pratt & Whitney for failing to supply over the last 3 years, and its current financial situation does not permit it to continue operations. GoFirst has halted operations for today and tomorrow, leaving hundreds of passengers stranded across the country. The airline has also stopped bookings from the 6th of May to the 15th of May. Speaking exclusively to CNBC-TV18, the CEO of GoFirst, Kona, said the voluntary insolvency plea is to protect the airline's assets and find a resolution. He claimed that Pratt & Whitney owes the airline close to $950 million and is defying an arbitration order delivered in Singapore. GoFirst has filed a case against Pratt & Whitney in a Delaware court. The CEO also added that the Wadia Group, the promoters of the airline, remain committed.
We are not filing for bankruptcy. We are filing for a resolution process whereby, by making an application under Section 10, we are trying to move to the NCLT to find out if we can protect our assets and to see how we can again resume the operations under the provisions of the IBC Act. Unfortunately, IBC itself has a name which is called Insolvency and Bankruptcy, but the purpose of this whole application is for resolution. 24 months they have infused 3,200 crore. Not only that, I think I would be failing in my duty if I don't consider the kind of support which the government has also given. They have given the ECLGS scheme, which is Emergency Credit Line Guaranteed Scheme, and they have given a sanction of 1,500 crore, out of which we have drawn 1,300 crore. So we have actually infused 4,600 crore in last 24 months. If I don't get engines, even after putting more 5,000 crores in next 1 year, then also the entire infusion of the funds will go down the drain. We did receive the compensation from Pratt & Whitney out of the amount which was mentioned in DRHP of around $49 million. And the balance which was post the March 2020, we have still not received the compensation. We continue to raise this issue with them. In fact, we also made claims in the intermediate period in July 2022, as well as when we filed for the arbitration. And the claims are in the range of almost $950 million based on the AOG compensation, which has been evaluated by one of the very well-known firms.
All right, let's now go across to Jagannarayan, Padmanabhan, Senior Director at CRISIL Market Intelligence and Analytics, and Akshay Makhija, Senior Advocate. Akshay Makhija, if I can begin with you, we heard the GoFirst CEO saying that Wadia Group board members are not resigning. He said insolvency proceedings are not to sell the airline, but to revive it. What are the options available under the IBC framework?
So first of all, thank you for having me, Parikshit. I think what the CEO said is actually correct in a way, because what they have done is they have not gone for bankruptcy, which is under Section 59 of the IBC. What they have done is they have moved the NCLT under Section 10, which is the resolution process. And if the NCLT were to admit their petition, Section 14 would kicking in the moratorium, whereby all the claims against them would freeze for the time being till the NCLT was to decide on the resolution process. It's very similar to the process we are all now familiar with respect to when financial creditors and operational creditors approach the NCLT. It's the similar kind of a process where an IRP will be appointed. The resolution professional will then take over the management of the company, and eventually, once he gets into the books of accounts, identifies the creditors, etc., assets, there will be a committee of creditors who will look into it and see how to resolve it best. The idea behind IBC is to keep the companies going and not to wind them up. So that's essentially what GoFirst is trying to achieve by moving a petition under Section 10 of the IBC.
From what we know so far, the claims made before the NCLT, do you feel they qualify for a resolution process? They qualify for a relief?
See, it's premature for me to comment on anything like that, because I have not seen on what grounds they have approached the NCLT. One can only comment on that if one has seen the petition, but I'm assuming that they have claimed that they are in certain default and they are unable to pay their creditors, which is why they have approached the NCLT so that their assets can be protected, and at the same time, creditors will not immediately gun for their throat and they will have a breathing space.
All right. Let me get in Jagannarayan, Padmanabhan as well. Jagannarayan, as far as the airline's financial position goes, your view on the situation and also the ability of the airline to resume operations after grounding?
Yeah, not getting into the specific on the financials part of it, but yes, as pointed out by the management, the claim which is put across is quite significant, right? And $950 million is not a small amount of money. And hence, that is one part of it. The second part of it is also the engines. So that also from a commitment on when it's going to come through. I think these are two things which are very important as far as from the functioning of the airlines is concerned. So a resolution and a quick one at it will be the most important part of it, because any delay in coming to arriving at a consensus will only prolong the situation, and we don't want any kind of delay in that part of it. So I think a quick and a time-bound part will help the airline to quickly revive itself. And yes, if those compensations are made and if it comes through, I think it will bring in a lot of confidence to the creditors as well. And then the functioning of the airline can continue in a smooth manner.
Right. What also would this do to the airline industry? You've got GoFirst, which is suspending operations. It's not taking bookings at least till the 15th of May. An urgent hearing will be held at the NCLT tomorrow. But if the airline remains grounded for the next couple of weeks, what does this do to the aviation industry, to the existing players, and prices of tickets? And what does this mean for an average customer, Jagannarayan?
Yeah, sure. So I think that's the more important part that we'll have to look at it, because in terms of while as of yesterday, in fact, we saw that the airline passenger traffic has kind of really inched up and come to the pre-COVID. So that is an important aspect and a very important event which has happened in the last couple of years with the COVID, and the whole aviation industry is coming back to grips post that. Once that is happening and things were getting normalized with this kind of an impact, I think that's something that the airlines, other airlines, while they will continue to get market share gain because of the non-function of Go Air for the limited period in time, but for the overall industry, it could be a slight setback because you would want more airlines, more competition be in the marketplace, and that will only happen if they see that the airlines function and get in that kind of growth which is there. So I think to get in the more confidence into the overall industry, I think it's very important that these airlines are functional, are profitable, are able to capture the whole growth story. And and nothing else, Go Air in that context is more from an Indian-grown airline. So I think if we have to get more entrepreneurship and get all those people coming in and to capture the overall growth story, this is a very important part of it. And for that reason, we need to see a resolution for this particular company.
Right. Akshay, Makhija, if I can return to you, one of the major arguments that GoFirst is making before the NCLT, and their CEO also told us exclusively today, is the supply chain issue. They said further fund infusion would be useless. It would go down the drain unless and until they don't get the engines from Pratt & Whitney. Pratt & Whitney, in their statement to CNBC-TV18, has said that they have been complying with the 2023 arbitration ruling related to GoFirst, and GoFirst has a lengthy history of missing its financial obligations to Pratt & Whitney. How significant could this statement be before the NCLT?
See, from what I know is that there is an emergency award in favor of GoFirst, which GoFirst claims that the other side is not complying with. So if that is the case, then yes, it is a very significant argument. GoFirst has also made some claims in the US courts seeking enforcement of that emergency award. What Pratt & Whitney's defense for not complying with the award is something which is not clear, because their statement is at best vague right now. Even if there was a past default by GoFirst, assuming there is one, even then that does not give them the license to not comply with an award that has come. So in my opinion, at least, that award would have to be complied with, and that would weigh with the NCLT.
Right. Now, speaking about the proceedings at the Delaware court, and GoFirst has moved an application there as well, seeking enforcement of an order issued by the Singapore International Arbitration Commission against Pratt & Whitney. How is that likely to play out, and what would be necessary for the success of GoFirst's application in the Delaware jurisdiction according to international laws?
See, an award by an arbitration tribunal is enforceable in most jurisdictions, and it is enforceable in the US as well. Most countries have adopted the UNCITRAL model, which we follow in India as well. So to that extent, I don't see why they should not be able to enforce that award, because it is by an international tribunal. It is, SIAC is one of the most renowned international arbitration bodies. So it's not as if they can claim that the proceedings would not have been done in a legitimate manner, etc., etc. So there is an award, they are bound to comply with it unless they can get it set aside.
Right. Jagannarayan, if I can come back to you, the DGC has issued a show cause notice to the airline. The airline's top management will be meeting the government. Jyotiraj Scindia, the aviation minister, has also said that GoFirst has been faced by critical supply chain issues with regard to engines. The government has been assisting the airline in every possible manner, and the issue has been taken up with stakeholders as well. How much and to what extent can the government intervene in this situation?
Yeah, so I think with respect to the government, the intervention could be very limited because it is between two particular parties, and there is one claim and there is a counterclaim coming through. And the management has also kind of put across that in the past that the government has provided enough support through the scheme which has been launched, and hence that has also been done. Other than showing the kind of support and intent for having this company be up and running, that is the extent to which that they can prevail upon. Also, I think the added part could be that we are, in a way, from an aviation industry, we are growing, significantly growing in the last decade or so, and it will continue to grow. I think so. For the vendor, to that extent, this will be a significant market, and hence they would also want to have this resolution done in a fair and square manner and as quickly as possible, because they would want to participate in the overall growth of this whole aviation market. So I think to that extent, yes, that's what the government can, kind of do a bit of an elbow push and get this resolution done at the earliest. That's my limited view of how, to what extent the government can come in.
And in terms of the common problems, GoFirst is not the only airline which is ailing. What does the aviation ministry, the government, need to do in order to solve some of the common problems, common issues causing a financial burden, financial drain on the airline sector in India?
Yeah, so I think it isn't the aviation sector which is going through the problem in India in particular, because what has happened in the last couple of years, globally there has been an impact which has happened, and hence that has to be put into that context. And to that extent, government did provide the necessary support as what was needed. In fact, if you were to just rewind in the last 24 months, India did change hands. So government did prevail upon and found an able and good suitor to have that airline up and running or continue its operations. And it had successfully done that as well. I think from an overall intent perspective, it's absolutely there. This is something which is very unique, which has happened for a particular company. I don't think we should kind of broad brush this into the larger part of it. But having said that, some of the other issues in terms of the ATF coming into the whole GST part of it, yes, that can be looked upon. The second one is now, because of the growth which is happening, there's a lot of capacity and skill building which needs to happen. There is a shortage in terms of the pilots which is there. There is overall shortage of other support staff for the functioning of the airports and airlines. So those kinds of stuff can be certainly done in a very expeditious manner so that we are able to continue to capture this whole growth part of it. I think these are some of the ones. And then there is something with respect to the airports. Sometimes the landing charges and other parts of it, how much can that be looked upon so that we develop airports which could be friendly for low-cost carriers and airports which are serviceable for those particular airlines can also be looked at rather than having a particular airport which is beyond this reach for, because at the end of the day, all of these charges gets passed on to the passengers and can have an impact of the extent to which the airlines can make their pricing. So to that extent, these development of these low-cost airports can also be looked at. So those are some of the issues that can be taken up by the government.
Okay. All right. Akshay, very quickly, what will be some of the factors that the NCLT would be considering in a case like this? It will be urgently heard tomorrow. And what is the best case scenario for GoFirst to be able to resume operations on after the 15th of May?
See, I think the NCLT, of course, will go into the factors which have been presented in the petition in terms of what is the default, why is the default, and if all the necessary ingredients of Section 10 are in place, I would assume that NCLT would issue notice in the matter, and once notice is issued, Section 14 moratorium automatically kicks in, and that gives them the protection and breathing space to then think about what to do further, and the IRP will also get appointed thereafter. And as far as resolution is concerned, that then boils down to the IRP appointed to look into the books, form a committee of creditors, and see if it can move forward as a going concern. Now, how long that process will take? Well, the code prescribes it to be done in 180 days with a maximum of 330, even if there is a delay. So that's the kind of timeline you're looking at. Though we have seen NCLT proceedings go way past the timelines prescribed, but hopefully this will happen in a time-bound manner.
All right. Akshay, Makhija, Jagannarayan, Padmanabhan, thank you so much for joining us here on CNBC-TV18, giving us your view on GoFirst proceedings at the NCLT. We're going to take a short break here on the program. When we return, we'll continue our coverage on the aviation sector. Stay tuned.
Friends, I want to share some good news with all of you. Firstly, like always, we have performed very well this time also.
But what will we get?
Secondly, we shall invest in employee benefit.
Come on, now tell us what will we get?
And thirdly, we shall invest in LIC's group funded plans.
Great, we'll get everything!
Now, leave encashment,
Gratuity,
and along with pension,
our future is secure.
Yes, employees' real benefit lies in LIC pension and group scheme.
सीधे अरे नमस्ते सीधे 99 एकर्स पे है फ्री प्रॉपर्टी लिस्टिंग घर कल ही लिस्ट किया था और आज लाइन लग गई 99 एकर्स पे प्रॉपर्टी आएगी लेने वालों की लाइन लग जाएगी घर लेना हो या बेचना 99 एकर्स से ही पूछना
18 years of honoring excellence in business leadership. A stage that elevates peers into role models. A ceremony that ignites aspiration in young achievers. A congregation where the pioneers shape our nation's future. A celebration of leadership. Standard Chartered presents India Business Leader Awards, a legacy inspiring excellence, in partnership with Hindustan Times.
Presented by Standard Chartered.
Z-Black Premium Agarbatti and Dhoop, official prayer partner, Delhi Capitals.
चले
चले चले
साफ हवा एंजॉय करने के लिए अब कहीं और क्यों चले? वोल्टास का नया प्योर एयर एडजस्टेबल एसी विद हेपा फिल्टर लाए साफ ठंडी हवा सीधे आपके घर, वो भी 6 एडजस्टेबल टनेज मोड्स में।
तो हवा और सेविंग्स दोनों टन-टनाटन।
Welcome back to News Center. Is the Indian aviation industry headed towards a duopoly structure? GoFirst has suspended operations for 2 days and has moved the bankruptcy court. The revival of Jet Airways has hit a roadblock with the resignation of all senior executives. As things stand, Indigo has a market share of 57% and the Tata Group airlines like Air India, Vistara and AirAsia have a combined market share of 33%. Essentially, two players now have a combined market share of just over 90%. Shares of Indigo rallied in trade after GoFirst filed for bankruptcy resolution process. Several brokerages have increased the target price for Indigo stock as they expect an increase in demand for the airline. The fall in crude oil prices also provided a positive boost. Moving on, even as GoFirst flounders, Spicejet looks to take advantage. The low-cost airline has said that it plans to revive 25 grounded aircraft. Sources tell us that Spicejet has already mobilized 400 crores to revive these aircraft and will draw funds from the union government's emergency credit line scheme as well. Danish Anand is here with more.
Well, low-cost carrier Spicejet has announced that the airline will revive its 25 grounded aircraft and the funds will be drawn from government's ECLGS scheme as well as from company's cash flow. The airline also said that the majority of the ECLGS funding received would be utilized for the revival of its grounded aircraft. Spicejet sources further informed that the 25 planes were grounded due to supply chain issues and there is a possibility that the airline will likely lease more aircraft in the future. Spicejet till now has mobilized rupees 400 crores to revive its grounded fleet and is confident that this will add extra capacity for the peak summer season. This development has come a day after another low-cost carrier, GoFirst, has approached NCLT for voluntary insolvency due to Pratt & Whitney engine issues.
Thanks, Danish, for joining us. Now, the Civil Aviation Ministry has said that it is in constant touch with airlines and OEMs on the issue of grounded aircraft. Piyush Srivastava, Senior Economic Advisor at the Civil Aviation Ministry, spoke to my colleague Madhiya Mujawar. He said that 2 airlines have been suffering very badly because one particular engine maker is unable to supply engines. Further, Srivastava added that the transshipment policy is vital for Indigo's cargo movement, is still a work in progress. Take a look.
Basically, the policies would be related to transporting cargo and the security aspects related to that. So we are allowing tail-to-tail transfer at the airport with certain safeguards that have been built in at the instance of BCAS. So we have to honor that, and I think that is work in progress and we'll get there.
So I have one question on GoFirst. Indian Airlines are facing liquidity crunch and also issues with engines that are faulty and which are leading to grounding of aircraft. What is the government doing to mitigate the liquidity issues of these airlines?
See, liquidity issues, basically we have got this emergency credit line facility that is there on offer. We've expanded the limit that is available under the emergency credit line. We have made it flexible where if the promoter brings in his money, an additional 500 crores will be available to the airlines. The present limit without the promoter bringing in money is 1,000 crore rupees. That was available to all the airlines. A couple of them have actually touched around 1,000 crore rupees. But liquidity is something that the airlines will have to find for themselves and the promoters need to bring in money for that. So that is my immediate response to this.
So DGC has issued a notice to GoFirst because they suspended operations without making any provisions for passengers. Is the government looking to provide any relief to customers?
So that is something that the airline regulator will respond to. But coming back to your earlier question where the aircraft are there on the ground and what is the government doing about that. See, the aircraft are there on the ground because of the whiplash action of the COVID. So what has happened is the supply chains have got disrupted. One particular supplier of engines has not been able to service the engines and provide alternate engines to the airlines. So the couple of airlines, 2 airlines in fact, have been suffering very badly, and there are 70 AOGs, 70 aircraft on the ground, which is a huge number considering this small fleet that they operate and the small fleet that we have as a country. So the passengers have been put to some inconvenience. On our part, we have been in constant touch with the airlines. and also the OEM, both at the official level and as well as the diplomatic level. So we are doing whatever is required, but then there are certain issues that are beyond our control.
So Pratt & Whitney was summoned by the Aviation Ministry as well few months back due to the engine shortage issues. What was their response to the Aviation Ministry?
I'll not like to speak on individual companies, but as I said, this is something that we are taking up at the highest level.
All right, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of News Center. More news and updates continue right here on CNBC TV 18.